Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een wa man tamassaka bi sunnatihi ila yawm ad-din. Thumma amma ba'd. Alhamdulillah ala ni'mat al-Islami wa sunnah. All praise and thanks belong to Allah for guiding us to Islam and for guiding us to the sunnah. حدثني جماعة من الشيوخ بإسناد كل إلى سفيان بن عيينة عن عمرو بن دينار عن أبي قابوس مولى عبد الله بن عمرو عن عبد الله بن عمرو بن عاص رضي الله تعالى عنهما أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال: الراحمون يرحمهم الرحمن ارحموا من في الأرض يرحمكم من في السماء. The Prophet ﷺ, he said in this tremendous hadith that those who are merciful, they will be shown mercy by the most merciful. Be merciful and show mercy to those who are in the earth, and the one who is above the heavens, it will show you mercy. The ulama, they mentioned the reason why this hadith has been mentioned and connected to knowledge. That is because knowledge is mercy. نتيجته رحمة في الدنيا وغايته رحمة في الآخرة. The result of knowledge is mercy in this world, and the end goal of knowledge is mercy in the hereafter. We continue going over the tremendous hadith, the hadith of Abdullah ibn Abbas, the hadith of Ibn Abbas radiyallahu ta'ala anhuma, أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال: إن الله تجاوز عن أمتي الخطأ والنسيان وما استكره عليه. That Allah Ta'ala, He has overlooked and has forgiven from my nation al-khata wal-nisyan wa mastukrihu alayhi, and that which they are compelled to do. نعم. وقال العلامة الشيخ عبد المحسن العباد البدر حفظه الله تعالى, he mentions, he says, wal-khata. What is al-khata? Al-khata فعل الشيء من غير القصد, is to do something without unintentively, yani to do something without intending to do it. This is what is intended by al-khata, or as is translated, mistake. So a mistake is when you do something unintentionally. This is a mistake. Now, if you intend to do something, you can't call it a mistake. Now, if you intend to do something, you can't call it a mistake. So, for example, if you know someone is walking behind you or walking up, now, if you know this, you see them walking up, you call that a peripheral vision, whatever the case is, right? There's a reflection, whatever. You see them walking up, and then you intend to act, to throw your hands back and to hit them in the face, then you can't say, oh, that was a mistake. That was a mistake. You intended to do that. That wasn't a mistake. You intentionally have done that. Now, as opposed to someone who was stretching, they didn't know anyone was in close proximity to them. They were stretching, so they just stretched, and they happened to hit someone. Then they can say, I'm sorry, that was a mistake. I didn't even know you were there. I didn't know you were there. I'm sorry, that was a mistake. Okay, that's a mistake. Now, so that you're not held accountable for that. That makes sense? Okay. So a mistake is that which is done without intention. Now, but a quick note, not as a result of negligence, but due to being unintentional, okay? But not due to negligence, not being haphazard, right? So what's an example of being haphazard in the aforementioned example? Okay, if you stretched, you happen to hit someone, you didn't know they were there. It did not come across your mind the possibility of there being people there. Okay, so you can say this is a mistake. As opposed to you're in a crowd of people. You know you're in a crowd of people. You know there are a lot of people around you. So now, just being haphazard, you swing back and you hit someone. You can't say, "Oh, I was stretching. That was a mistake. I didn't even see you." No, this is negligence now. Why? Because you knew you were in a situation where the probability of you hitting someone was a lot. That you can't just move your hand in any type of way out of what? Because it runs the risk of hitting someone. You understand the difference? So this is what we will call negligence. You were negligent of your surrounding. So this you can't call a mistake. This is not a mistake. Okay? So a mistake is that which is done either because you did not intend it, you did something, you didn't intend to do it, and it's not linked to being neglectful. It's not linked to being neglectful. That makes sense? All right. The second is والنسيان. والنسيان, the Shaykh he mentions, he says أن يكون ذاكرا للشيء فينساه عند الفعل. This is that a person perhaps he knew something. So in order to forget something, you have had to have first known it. In order to forget something, you had to have known it to begin with. Okay? So a person, they knew something. It was something that was very important, linked to whatever the case is. But then they forgot. Then they forgot about it. So they're not held accountable. They're not held accountable for what they had forgotten about. Right? If that makes sense. Well, ikrah, and that which is compelled, the Shaykh he mentions, he says, al-ilja'u ila al-qawl aw fi'l, meaning that a person was forced to say a statement or they were forced to do an action. They were forced to say a statement or they were forced to do an action. Now, they didn't want to do it. They were forced to it, right? Of course, an extreme case scenario of this would be like what? A gun to your head. A gun to your head. Someone put a gun to your head, so listen, unless you denounce Islam, I'm going to blow your brains out. Now, so in this type of situation, if a person is forced to say anything, then they are not held accountable for that because what? Because they were forced. They didn't want to do it. They were forced into doing it. And that's why they did what they did and said what they said. That makes sense? All right. The Shaykh he mentions, he says that an ithm marfu'un fi hadhihi thalatha, that the sin is lifted in these three situations. نعم. وقد جاءت الأدلة من كتاب الله عز وجل على رفع ذلك. And there has come proofs and evidences in the book of Allah that point to this. There's come proofs and evidence in the book of Allah that points to this concept that what? That which we forget about or that which we do out of pure error, now unintentionally, pure error, then we're not held accountable for that. This can be seen in Allah Ta'ala's statement, رَبَّنَا لَا تُوَخِذْنَا إِن نَسِينَا أَوْ أَخْطَأْنَا, that, oh, our Lord, do not take us to account because we have forgotten and because we made a pure error, pure mistake. Do not call us to account for because we have forgotten something or because we have made a pure mistake. And it comes a hadith, akhrajahu Muslim, where the Prophet ﷺ informs that the Prophet ﷺ informs that Allah Ta'ala, he said, قَدْ فَعَلْت, that verily I have done it. I have answered that request. Don't hold you accountable for what you forget about or for what you do out of pure error, pure mistake. Then yes, you're forgiven. You're forgiven. You're not held accountable for it. Now you're not taken into account for it. And that ayah is in Surah Al-Baqarah and is verse 286. وقال تعالى, and also we see this concept in the statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وليس عليكم عفوا وليس عليكم جناح مما أخطأتم به, and that verily there is no blame upon them in that in which they have done out of pure error, out of pure mistake. ولكن ما تعمدت قلوبكم, but rather that which you have done intentionally from your hearts. Now, وَلَيْسَ عَلَيْكُمْ, there's not upon you any type of blame for that in which you have done. يعني أخطأتم به, that which you have done out of pure mistake. It's a pure mistake. So you're not held accountable for that. There's no blame upon you for that. وَلَكِنْ مَا تَعَمَّدَتْ قُلُوبُكُمْ, but rather the blame is upon you due to that in which your hearts have intended. It is upon you, the blame, the sin, due to that in which your hearts have intended. Now, so when we see this concept that we're not held to account for that in which we have done out of pure mistake, then we see the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As Allah ta'ala, He ends the aforementioned verse by saying, وَكَانَ اللَّهُ, and that verily Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, غَفُورًا رَحِيمًا, that He is the all-forgiving, the most merciful. He's the all-forgiving, the shower of mercy. Now, so this is a ni'mah, azima, bila shak, wa bila rayb. This is a great bounty, a great blessing, undoubtedly. Now, this is that which should make every Muslim so happy, that if I do something out of pure mistake, I didn't intend that, I'm not held accountable for it. Allahu Akbar. If I do something due to forgetfulness, I didn't know and it's wrong, it turns out so bad and so on and so forth, that I'm not held accountable for it because it's due to forgetfulness. Allahu Akbar. Because who from amongst us except that we forget? Who from amongst us except that we make mistakes? So this is tremendous, right? This should make everyone so happy. Wa qala ta'ala, and Allah ta'ala, He says, now, إِلَّا مَنْ أُكْرِهَ وَقَلْبُهُ مُطْمَئِنٌ. He said, except for the one who was forced, but his heart is at peace. At peace with what? His heart is complacent with what? Bil iman. Except for those who, they are forced, they are compelled to do something. Now, Allah Ta'ala give us maybe some more background on this. This ayah that comes in Surah An-Nahl. Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, He says, "Man kafara billah ba'da man kafara billah min ba'di imanihi." That whoever disbelieves in Allah after they had belief in Allah, whoever disbelieves in Allah after they had believed in Allah. Then Allah Ta'ala goes on to say, "Illa man ukriha wa qalbuhu mutma'innun bil iman," except for those who they were forced to say a statement of kufr, they were forced to say a statement of shirk, but their hearts are at peace with iman. Their hearts are at peace with iman. Now, that makes sense? Right. Allah Ta'ala, He goes on to say in the ayah, نعم, ولكن من شرح بالكفر صدرا. However, those who will be held accountable, then they are those who have opened up their breasts, who have opened up their hearts to kufr. Then these ones, they're going to be held accountable. Now, these ones will be held accountable. But so, in other words, if a person was forced to say some statements of kufr, or they were forced to do some actions of kufr, because if not, you'll be killed. Now, they were forced to do a gun point at your head, something like this. Then it's not upon them. Whatever they were forced to say, whatever they were forced to do, will have no bearing, will have no effect upon them, as long as their hearts believed, they had the iman in their heart. They just did what they did because they were at gunpoint. Now, they said what they said because they were at gunpoint. Then this is something that is different. وَأَمَّا مَا أَتْلَفَهُ لِغَيْرٍ فَهُوَ مَضْمُونٌ. Now, however, whatever is linked to the loss, whatever may link to the loss of somebody else, then that person is still held responsible for that. You have to pay some type of compensation or whatever the case is due to that situation. Now, due to that situation. So, for example, like a person who they commit manslaughter, their actions result in someone's death. Now, their actions result into someone's death, even though it was unintentional. Now, but it resulted in the loss of someone else's loss. It resulted in someone else losing something. Then a person is still liable to compensate, or there's still some things that are upon them. So, for example, yajibu fihi adiyah, that a person have to pay the blood money or the financial compensation due to the loss of life. That still has to be paid. You can't say, well, it's a mistake. No, okay, yeah, it's a mistake. But you still are liable to pay this now, because your mistake, it resulted in someone else's loss. So you're still held responsible for that. Now, so you have to still pay the financial compensation due to the loss of life, ma'al kafara, and you still have to bring the expiation. Now, you still have to do those things to bring the expiation due to the your actions resulting in the loss of someone's life. Okay? وإذا أكره على الزنا أو القتل معصوم فلا يجوز له ذلك. نعم. So, for example, if a person is forced to commit zina or to kill someone that it is not permissible for them to kill, right? They're forced to do it and so on and so forth. Then in these situations, then there's nothing upon them. So if a person is raped, may Allah Ta'ala protect us all and our families from the likes of this. I mean, they're not held accountable because they were forced. That wasn't by their choice. They were forced into that situation. وَعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. So the blame falls on the one who compelled them. The blame falls on the one who forced them. The blame is on the raper. Naam. It's not upon the person who was raped. The blame is upon the one who committed the rape, who committed that act of transgression and that evil act. The blame is upon that person. So with this, the Shaykh, he goes on and he says that we understand from this hadith two things, two takeaways that he wants to focus in on as takeaways for this particular narration. And that is, the first of them, bayanu sa'ati rahmatillah, is it shows us how vast and broad is Allah Ta'ala's mercy. Na'am fadlihi wa ihsanihi ila ibadah, and how Allah Ta'ala has bestowed his bounty and good treatment to his slaves. He has given them this bounty and given them this this great treatment that he does not hold them responsible. He does not put a sin upon them or hold them liable for them doing something out of forgetfulness, out of a pure mistake or that which they were forced to do, that they are not held liable for these things. So that is a great mercy. The second takeaway is raf'ul mu'akhadha ala al-khata, is that the one who does something out of pure mistake, a pure error, unintentionally, then there is no compensation that is to be taken from that person. No restitution that is due for that particular thing. نعم فإن كان الخطأ في ترك الواجب فعله, meaning that if the khata is by leaving off, he made a mistake by leaving off something that was wajib, which they did, وإن كان في إتلاف حق غير ضمنه, but if the khata was that they left off a wajib portion of something in which that they had to do, then they have to bring that. Right? So for example, if a person leaves off one of the pillars of the prayer out of mistake, once that is brought to their attention, they have to do that rak'ah again. They can't say, oh no, that was a mistake, so it's nothing upon me, right? No. You have to go back, you have to do that rak'ah. Why? Because you left off something that was wajib from that which you was performing. Mistakenly, yes. Mistakenly you left it off, yes. So but you have to go back and you have to fix that. Right? Likewise, if it's that which is linked to the loss of someone else, like in the aforementioned example, then you still have to pay some restitutions. You still have to pay some financial compensation for the loss of life. Where your mistake led to someone losing their life, you still have to pay for that. Unless the situation is, that mistake was due to negligence, and that's something totally different. If it's due to negligence, then that's something that is different. You're held for that. Now, because it was due to negligence, you're held for that. But if it's a mistake that is not linked to anyone else's loss, is not because of negligence, or is not because of leaving off something that was wajib, now, like in the case of salah, right, or the like, then a person is not taken into account for that. They're not held liable for that. There's no restitution that is to be paid for that, because it is not linked to anyone else's rights, or it's not linked to anyone else losing anything. It is not linked to any type of negligence, so on and so forth. These are tremendous principles that affect our day-to-day life. So studying these things and being familiar with these things is for our own benefit. So spending some more time seeking knowledge and learning and studying our religion and reflecting over the statements of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the statements of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and understanding what they meant, understanding them by basing our understanding on the understanding of the Salaf, on the understanding of the Sahaba, how they understood them, understanding the Qur'an, being upon the Qur'an and the Sunnah as understood by the Salaf of this Ummah. This is in our best interest. So how do we know what it means? We know what it means by going back to the statements of the Salaf that highlight that this is how they understood what it means, because what they understood, what they knew, it was proper because they were taught by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and their superiority was testified to. And us following them is something that is inside of the text, that we have to follow them and be upon what they're upon, because what they're upon is nothing but the truth. Now, so it behooves us to spend some more time learning about our religion, understanding it properly, and acting in accordance to it, implementing that guidance. Is for our own benefit, and it benefits us in the next life, undoubtedly, but it also benefits us here in this life. So it's something that we should take extremely seriously. Then the Shaykh goes on to get into the next hadith. ولكن نكتفي بهذا القدر وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وجزاكم الله خيرا.